The chill of the room pressed against me, as if the very air was waiting to suffocate us. The glass tiles stretched out before me in a cruel, gleaming maze. A dangerous puzzle, each step a gamble. I stood frozen, staring at the impossibly thin tiles, each one more fragile than the last. The voice echoed through the cold speakers, the game's master's tone, robotic and detached, as if speaking to a nameless mass.
Hello players, let me welcome you all to the 5th game. The 5th game is Glass Stepping Stones. The stepping stones before you are made from one of two types of glass. One will be tempered glass and the other will be normal glass. The tempered glass stepping stones are strong enough to hold the weight of 2 people. However, the normal glass will break even if just one person steps on it. For this game, you will guess which one of the next 2 tiles is the tile made of the stronger tempered glass, and only step on those across the 18 pairs of tiles. You may then cross over to the other side safely and pass this game.
I swallowed hard. The others around me were just as frozen, their eyes wide with fear, and the countdown began. I glanced down at my feet. The glass beneath me was clear. It looked like nothing more than a shallow floor. It didn't look like it could hold anything, let alone a person's weight. I took my first step. My breath caught in my throat. The tile beneath me cracked, but held. A sigh of relief escaped my lips. I wasn't dead, but I knew that could change at any second. Each player moved carefully, taking tentative steps, their eyes darting from tile to tile, trying to gauge the strength of each one before committing their weight. But there was no way to tell. Not until it was too late. The first scream shattered the air. A man 2 players ahead of me had stepped too heavily on a tile. It cracked, the glass giving way with a horrible snap. His body disappeared into the abyss below, the scream ending as abruptly as it had started. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. We were all just waiting to fall. The rules were simple, or so they seemed. One tile was sturdy, the next wasn't. We had to find the right path, or we would perish. I was next. The man who had fallen was replaced by another, just as terrified, just as clueless. The second player took his first step, his foot hovering over the glass. A few seconds passed, his foot landed on the tile. Then silence. The man disappeared with a horrible, sickening crunch, and the tile shattered beneath him, his body swallowed by the dark. The others were moving faster now, as though to escape some fate, but I was paralyzed with fear. I couldn't do it. My legs felt like lead. My heartbeat was deafening in my ears. My mind screamed at me to just run. But where? The tile stretched endlessly. There was no way to tell which were safe. I took another step. This time I heard a soft crack, a warning, a soft tremor under my foot. But the tile didn't break. I breathed out, relieved for a moment, but the dread crept back. How many more steps? How many more players would fall before I reached the end? My eyes darted to the others. People were slipping, falling, panicking. Some pushed others out of the way in their desperation. Others froze, refusing to move, hoping the tile would hold. They didn't know it was pointless. None of us knew. We were all at the mercy of their twisted game, our lives dangling on the edge of a glass shard. I took another step. This time, the tile didn't creak or crack. It simply sunk. I gasped, feeling the glass dip beneath me. My foot sank into the surface, but miraculously, it didn't break. I was holding on by some cruel miracle, but how long would my luck last? Then, just ahead of me, someone else stepped forward. It was a woman, her foot trembling as it touched the next tile. She hesitated. Her eyes darted between the tiles as though trying to predict the next disaster. A second passed, then another. Then she stepped. The glass cracked. I barely had time to scream as she fell through the hole, her body disappearing below, the final echo of her scream swallowed by the abyss. The sound of her fall hung in the air, a haunting reminder that none of us were safe. I couldn't stop. I couldn't go back. I moved forward, each step a battle against the rising panic in my chest. I wasn't the only one left now. There were 3 of us, Me, and a woman ahead of me, and a man behind me. We were all walking the same treacherous path, one step away from falling. I reached the next tile. It held. A few more steps. The woman ahead of me took her turn, stepping gingerly onto the next tile. Then crack. Her leg gave way and she disappeared into a blur of motion. Gone. Another body lost to the darkness. I was alone now. Just me and the other remaining man. I could see the end. The final tile was just a few steps away, glowing faintly in the dim light. But the closer I got, the more treacherous the path seemed. I moved slowly, my foot hovering just above each tile. The fear of making the wrong choice gnawed at my mind. It didn't help that the other man had fallen silent. His footsteps slow, heavy, as if he too realized that the game was rigged. Finally, I reached the last tile, the final one, the moment of truth. I stepped onto it. Nothing. The tile didn't crack. It didn't shift. It didn't break. I was safe. I staggered forward, legs weak with exhaustion and terror. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs, but I didn't dare look back. The man who had been following behind me had just made the last jump to the finishing platform. Seconds after the jump, the glass tiles exploded, making its way towards us. Everything seemed to go in slow motion. The other player and I, now covered in broken glass and minor cuts across our faces, stared intensely at each other, knowing we had one game left, and only one of which who would leave here alive. Finally, we had reached the last of the games. The room was in the same field that we had played red light, green light in. The goal was simple. I had to fight the other player, one-on-one, in a twisted version of the children's game of Squid Game. There were weapons, there were rules, and there was only one winner. My opponent looked determined, desperate like me. We circled each other, our eyes locked. He lunged first, and we fought, scraping, bleeding, and clawing at each other. I don't know how it happened. One minute he was right in front of me, his face a mask of rage. The next, I had driven a knife into his chest. I watched his eyes go wide with disbelief. He crumbled to the ground, blood staining the arena. I had won. I had survived. As the final whistle blew, I stood alone. The prize money was a mountain of cash, a symbol of my victory. But all I felt was emptiness. My hands were stained, my heart was broken. I had made it all through 6 games, but I had lost everything. What do you do when you win, but there's nothing left to win for?